Welcome to Hotline. Hey, you guys out there in television land, we are back. We are the hottest show on CAN TV, Hotline. Herald Washington Post, 1987 on your dial. We want y'all to call in early, and tell your friends call in. And also call them up and tell them watch us on Hotline. We're back with that fantastic commander, Frank
B. Thompson III, and asking you all please call in at 312-738-1060 to hear your feedback and everything. I have a special guest with us, and he's from the American Legion 3rd District, and he's our service officer, which is we consider as a lawyer. So I need you all to call in, veterans or whatever, men and women. If you need to know any answer to your problems or something like that, we have somebody on here right now on the set that will answer your questions. So give him an opportunity of talking to you all. Let me introduce him right now. His name is Rich Lewinsky. Whatever. I said it quick. Yeah, no.
I know what to do. Welcome to the show, Rich. Glad to have you back.
Glad to be able to come
Brothers
on.
and sisters out there in television land, when the commander talked about this young man, Rich, as an attorney, well, he's letting you know any questions that you have containing to the VA, Rich can answer those questions. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the show and why what was going on at the VA is so important to your interest. Rich, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you.
Let's talk about being a service person to the American Legion Post and why that position is so important to our veterans.
The service officer at the post level's responsibility is to ensure that the veterans and their families are attached and locate the benefits that are necessary. At the district level, I am responsible for 16 Legion posts and anyone within that district. The department service officers, which I am a former department service officer, are trained to deal with the Chapter 38 laws, which is what covers your benefits and the hospital medical programs. Once you're credentialed to represent veterans, you're able to represent them in the federal courts all the way up into the Court of Veterans Appeals. Hopefully your case never gets that far, and that it's actually handled at the initial stage. Now, where there's different levels of compensation. You have service-connected and you have non-service-connected pension. Prior to you approaching a service organization or applying for service-connected benefits, it is in your best interest to gather as much evidence as possible. We have to all understand, especially us older veterans, that the majority of the employees at the Veterans Administration were more than likely not around during Vietnam or the Korean conflict or World War II. So we're at a stage where now we as veterans must educate them with the evidence that we submit. Those younger veterans also is the same thing. Make sure you gather as much evidence as possible. This way the claim can proceed. Now, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Mr. McDonald, had issued a memorandum last year, and that in regards to a fully developed claim could be dispensed within 90 days. And that is the claim for a minimum of 2 conditions and all evidence submitted. Anything over 3 conditions, it automatically demands more time, so it will not be addressed as a fully developed claim. Also, another important thing that a lot of our elderly veterans aren't aware of, if you serve one day during a period of war and your income is only your Social Security, you are entitled to apply for a non-service connected pension. And this pension will bring your income to a set limit that the Veterans Administration has set. Basically, our job is multi-layered. We're counselors, attorneys, and basically earpieces for venting. I took on the job as service officer with the George L. Giles Post, and I've been doing this for 20 years. It's a life mission. You have to be dedicated. You cannot go into this job half-stepping. You must go at it full-time, otherwise you're depriving the veterans of what they need.
Let me ask you a question, because I have some problems with the Service Connect pension when you get out the military. Because when I got out in '76, I was not told that I was able to get that pension. So some 30 years later, I applied for the pension. Now I'm told, oh, you can't get it because you're going to get Social Security. Well, if that pension was due to me, I should have gotten that pension along with my Social Security.
The law on pensions and Social Security is very intricate. If you're over 65 years old and your income is only going to be your Social Security, if that amount is less than $1,700 a month, then you're not meeting the set income. So you can still apply for the non-service connected pension, and this will cover any out-of-pocket medical expenses that you incur. It's a fight, and it's all based on the amount of monies that you're receiving. Now, the rules used to be it's one or the other, but you cannot collect both.
But you're entitled. But
Right,
you
but-
should be entitled. First off, you work for Social Security. You paid into the system.
Right.
You should get that.
Right.
You earn that.
Well, see, now, if you're over 65 and you apply and you're going to draw your Social Security, and your Social Security is only going to pay you $600 a month, and you have no other pensions or income, then you make it, as long as you served 1 day during a period of war, you're entitled to apply for the larger sum with the non-service connected pension. And then you can collect.
That's terrible.
Right, well, here's the thing. If they grant you service-connected pension, they might not give you the full $1,800. They might bring you and the Social Security to that amount. If they determine that non-service connection pension pays you more, the law is they have to pay you at the greater amount. Now, service-connected, now you have a different option.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in Vietnam and you're a diabetic, you have neuropathy or any of the presumptive conditions, then you make application for service-connected disability, which you can collect both. Okay, you can still collect your Social Security, you can still collect your service-connected disability. Now, if that here, you can also collect both the service-connected and a non-service-connected pension, dependent upon your income, but more than likely you won't have to do both. It's a complex system, and it hasn't been changed since its inception. And every so many years, they bring in a new system that's supposed to make it easier for us and make it easier for the service organizations that represent the veterans there to do their job and make it easier for the application process. The problem is the new tools that are provided to the organizations, they have to be used. Otherwise, we just keep running into the same wall, and that's a continuum, and we keep stumbling with this. President Obama, prior to leaving office and through his entire term, he passed a lot of laws that made our jobs easier.
Okay.
And that means he changed the laws because of the Gulf War and the OEF in Afghanistan, because we were running into a lot of problems, and kids were coming home and not being able to do and apply for the benefits. So, regardless of what, President Obama signed more laws in our favor than the last two previous to him. It's just that it's not media-wise. It's to us, the intelligence and the veterans community. And so that we all understand, veterans out there, and I live this oath all the time, we are a separate entity in this country. We have our own fight. And amongst that fight now we have adapted and picked up the civilian fights. We're all part of the same program, but our fight will always be the same, which we shouldn't have to. That wasn't the agreement that we were given. There should be no fight to get our benefits, but this is the case. We are separate from the rest of society because our fight is only with one portion, the federal level of the government. We're not fighting city, county, state. We're going right after the big boys.
Well, let me ask you this question then about us all being veterans. When was the last time we had a delegation meeting with our Illinois delegation, both Republicans and Democrats, to talk about some of the issues facing us veterans?
Well, that is probably being held. Different politicians hold different meetings with the veterans community for feedback from us. The problem with all of that is this: if you're going to stick your hand in the fire with us, have your staff educated on what the real issues are. We shouldn't have to be coming to you. If you have a veterans representative in your office and his job is to handle the veterans issues, he should be acknowledged and know what's going on. He needs to come and visit, not upstairs. He needs to come down on the first floor. He needs to talk to the veterans. He needs to find out the internal problems. We've had so many politicians send their vet reps out, and before we know it, it's just a quagmire. They need to be trained so that they know. We should not have to continually tell the politicians what's going on. And myself, quite frankly, I believe any politician who was elected based on, we have a caller.
All right, caller, go ahead.
Yes, I've been watching you every Wednesday, and I understand and find out it's a very good show. But I have a question based on the new regime that just got the president-elect and his cabinet that he's placed over the VA system. One of the concerns that we had even under Obama is that if you owned the company and was a veteran-owned company, then they had set-asides for making sure that veterans had preferential opportunities to do business with the VA. But also now that they're talking about privatizing it, then the amount of business that you would get out of, let's say, Northwestern Hospital, do they still have the same guidelines, or will they have the same guidelines? Or will we as an organization continue to press the issue that regardless of whether you go to a private hospital or to the VA, you still have that same set-aside component?
On that question right there, that's a long question right there. But I can tell you this much: as far as my phone's been ringing off the hook since even before the nominations and all of that. Again, like I said, in order for us to change the Veterans Administration belongs to us, guys, and we have far too long gone in different ways to get things the way we want them. We must always hold their feet to the fire. We have to stay on them, and this shouldn't have to be. But if we let down our guard at any step in this program and on what we want to achieve, it deems them winning. And this shouldn't be a winning-losing type of thing. But we all, this issue with the contracts is definitely serious. Now, if you're a medical provider and you're providing some type of a medical service, say Pilates or acupuncture or a dental program or mental health, you could get through and look into becoming a contractor through the Choice Care program, which has been, mandated by Congress to be extended because this is a necessity. Now, outside of the medical, yes, sir.
But we also sell medical supplies, and because of the set-aside at one point, because you were a governmental agency, then you were honoring the VA, the veterans, in terms of veteran-owned companies. But when you outsource the services to Rush Presbyterian or Northwestern, do they still have the same guidelines?
I wouldn't know that. That there I wouldn't know
So
right
where
off
we
bat.
go?
Well, I think that's something that we will have to check into and get an answer for you and get back to you next week with an answer. Thank you for calling in.
That's a deep one.
That was a good question because I think part of the problem with our veterans is after you get out the military, who do you go to work for? If you start your own business, how do you break into the contract with the VA and the federal government?
The contracting with the federal government is a very intricate type of work right there, because there was and there still is a Veterans Business Resource Council. It's not a council anymore, but there's a Veterans Business Resource representative at the Small Business Administration whose job it is to ensure that we as veterans are afforded everything that's in the law that's our set-asides. Not only our set-asides, but 10 years ago, we moved to get companies to start hiring more veterans, because at that time, the government was offering tax break incentives for hiring disabled veterans and hiring actual guys coming out of the service. We as an entity have caught the short end of the stick in a lot of different ways, and it's taken different fights along the way to change the mindset. One of the things that took us all by surprise and actually set our blood pressure up a little bit was the kids coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan were being forced to join the union before they were entitled to get a job. And to us, it sounded like, gee, I got to pay $400 to join a union to get a job with the same government that had no problem sending me overseas.
Right, it don't make sense.
Well, this was a fight. And Afghan, Iraq war veterans got together, and the unions all got hand in hand, and we said, yeah, this is an unjust thing. So now we have union representatives that are veteran trained to do what I do, and they're working to keep that going. We as veterans are one of the quietest sections and portions of society. And believe it or not, this is because of the oath that we took. And because we're multi-generational, we encompass everything, we have different ideologies.
Right.
The key ideology should and always be that first and foremost, regardless of whatever beliefs we have outside of it, is we're veterans.
Right, we're veterans.
And we must fight to get what we need.
Now, how do we get more veterans to work for the VA system?
Well, this is
That's
a discussion.
another issue.
Yes, I just had a discussion with a woman from the main office last week regarding that, and I voiced concern that, especially at our hospitals, we see a lot of people are just contractors. What we've just realized within the last few months, we've received notices that the Veterans Administration has refused to hire retired service doctors, dentists, nurses, and people that have been doing and working in the medical profession, and they haven't hired them. And this to us seems like it's a major issue. I don't want a contractor whose attitude and tone is more in tune with working down the block at another hospital. I would prefer having a service member. Service member knows how to handle a veteran, and vice versa. If they're there, we need to hire them, and let's start reviewing these contracts.
Now, what about the freeze? There is a high freeze.
The Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the acting director, issued a statement stating that certain areas of the Veterans Administration employment are going to be exempt. This is anything having to do with public safety and public health. The notice was put out on the internet, and it's sent down to all of us 2 days ago. So they will still be hiring doctors, they will be still hiring nurses and phlebotomists, and the other areas that are going to be exempt, which have to go through a vetting process, will be posted within the next few weeks.
That Zoom don't want to work.
You need to.
Yes. All right. What you just saw is a ad talking about boots on the ground, and that's for the Veteran Village out in Ford Heights, Illinois. We want you to understand, every week when we come on, we want to lend a few words to the fact that we have 230,000 homeless veterans in Cook County. And the homeless village is just one apparatus that we have to deal with that issue. We do have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, my name is Adrienne, and I have worked for the VA before.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead.
Oh, and I love working with veterans. I'm a veteran myself.
Thank you for your service.
That's the best population in the world. to work
Yes,
for.
we are.
And I just wanted to know why, and now I'm having a hard time getting rehired at the VA.
Well, that's an issue we're dealing with right now, because right now there is a freeze. The present administration just put on a hiring freeze for the federal government, including the VA system.
What did you do for the VA?
I'm telling you, anybody that's listening, the veteran population is the best population in the world to work for.
Thank
I
you.
love veterans.
When were you in?
I was in from 1983 to 1990. I was in Air Force.
Okay, where did you do your time at?
I did my time at Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy.
Okay, I was stationed out there for a couple of weeks. Colorado Springs. Well,
And I just love my vets. I am a vet, and I love working with vets.
well, we thank you for loving being a vet and loving all of us. And we love you too. And make sure you tell your friends to check us out next week.
And I will tell my friends to call in.
Thank you.
I sure will.
Now,
Thank you.
part of the problem we're having is this whole issue of getting the VA system and even the federal government to recognize that there are some key issues.
Just recently, matter of fact, in the last couple of days, the Veterans Administration has added Fort McClellan, Alabama, to the list of contaminated sites, so that veterans that were stationed there, this would be females, and also the gentlemen and people that were at the MP school and the chemical school, to start registering and informing their doctors and medical providers that yes, they were stationed at Fort McClellan, and there are some medical issues related to that.
We want to thank you, Rich, for being on the show again.
My
This
privilege.
show. Also, we want to bring you up to date that on February the 8th, we're going to have Clark Hubbard here from WBGX. On the 15th, Bundio from the Cook County Veterans Commission. And on the 22nd, Mrs. Walker. And in March, Jesse Brown, Strike Force. So these are our future guests for the show. We want you to tune in, and we want you to know this is your show. This is your show. Hotline is your show. Please watch, call in, and we want to thank the callers that did call in. And until next week, we want to thank our technical crew out there, Dan May. Until next week.